Thank you so much, sir. We would be starting with the next session, which is a symposium on tribology. I request Dr. Ramesh Sen to stay back. He is among the panel. I request Dr. Harish Bhind and Dr. Surya Narayan to come up. They are the panel masters. And among the panelists, Dr. Ramesh Sen, Dr. David Favy, Dr. Arvind Chedda, Dr. Ali Albelushi, Dr. Surya Bhan, Dr. Rajesh Malhotra, and Dr. Bharat Modi. I would request them to come up on the stage, please.
Try to, this is, I can use one, I can use another. Yes, sir. I think after an interesting surgery, talking about drab things like tribology is a little let down for people. So we try to be quick, we try to be more precise. Newer development are happening in hip replacement and knee replacement surgery to make it last longer. And what makes it last longer is our understanding of how the things wear out, how the things fail. And that's where the tribology is very important. Many questions come to our mind, and we want to have this panelist answer some of the questions about what they believe in their practice and what they do in their practice. So we start with things about polyethylene, and we know that polyethylene, from the time Chanley used it for the first time in 1964, has been changing over the period to make it better and to last it longer. So do you think whatever has been done so far is good enough, or anything else can be done or should be done? We can start from this end.
So polyethylene,
You have to switch the mic on.
Polyethylene, I still tend to use hard-bearing surfaces, and early in my career, when I started, I did the immune response to particulate debris. And polyethylene had an immune response. It was, at that time, hard to see whether it was very pointed, meaning T-cell driven, or just generalized immune response. Finer details didn't work out. The most immunogenic was actually polymethyl methacrylate. Second was polyethylene, finally metal debris, and the most inert was still ceramic. And so the way polyethylene has progressed to cross-linking, what happens is that that debris that it generates, even though it is less in terms of volume of the debris, it's actually smaller than 10 microns. And when it gets below 10 microns, the macrophage will pick it up. So less debris will cause more inflammation. So even though you may not have eccentric wear, I have some patients that are complaining of actual pain almost as bad as their prior to surgery, so their arthritic pain. So I think we have progressed. We've decreased the amount of wear, but I think the debris is still too small, and it's causing an immune response.
Yeah.
Pain.
Just one request to all the panelists. We have only 13 minutes now, and we have 7 questions. You have to be brief. You get only 30 seconds to answer the question, if possible, about your... Yeah.
Can you repeat the question?
The question is...
Right here.
No, I'm sorry.
What
I meant was...
the polywear disease was what...
No, I'm just kidding. Because he had given a long statement, I just told him to repeat.
I can put it the other way. I mean, this poly disease was something which Will Harris said is a disease we created, and now we are battling with the solutions. Cross-linking in various ways has addressed. How successful do you think you feel?
Yeah, so I think we haven't reached there yet. We have reduced the wear, definitely. We have reduced osteolysis to some extent, but the particle problem is still there. And we have bought the mechanical problems now, the problems of mechanical failure. So that's what has happened. So we need to improve it more.
Dr. Ban, in your vast experience?
In brief, I would say that improving the quality of PE will solve the problem of wear property. How it will solve? 2 things. It reduces the adhesive wear, and it reduces the fatigue wear of the polyethylene.
Surya, I think that in our entire effort of trying to have a long-lasting combination, the advances done on the polyethylene as a material are probably the best advances that we have seen. and the advance is attempted by using hard materials like ceramic and metal on metal, experience has already shown us that they are highly technique sensitive. So yes, in my opinion, given the present choice, this is the right path to follow.
It stays the same. Yeah, that's right.
David?
Yeah, my preference is hard on soft bearing. So I think with highly cross-linked polyethylene, where it has been almost solved, the question is, I think it was just mentioned adding vitamin E or vivacity treatment. I think the verdict is still out on that, but I think with 20, 25 years, or the 15-year follow-up, essentially midterm follow-up right now, it's looking really good on these polyethylene. I mean, I do a lot of revisions. Osteolysis is almost
just for the sake of the audience, may I think the whole panel accepts that at least in the hips, the conventional poly should be out of the window?
Yes. Conventional or cross-linked?
Conventional poly should be
not... Conventional is history, modulated poly, whether cross-linked or vitamin E added or whatever else comes in the future. Yeah. Whatever else comes in the future. But yes, conventional is history.
Yes.
Okay. Thomas Kalko still uses monoblock, direct compression molded, single non-modular S-double component. Is very happy about it. So I think it's the way you look at it. There are advantages to conventional poly. We shouldn't forget. I mentioned mechanical properties with the...
So poly is here to stay. We can't eliminate that. The registry data recently has shown that the standard poly wear rate is little higher than cross-link. Cross-link poly in hip replacement surgery is quite well accepted, especially when it articulates with things like oxonium or ceramic. The rate of revision drops down quite significantly. It becomes almost half according to this article from Special Surgery. Again, it reduces wear in THR. Issue is it really good? Now, this is an article very recently, 2017. Most of the cross-link poly article, the wear study data, are up to 5 to 10 years. These are articles which are mentioned up to 15-year follow-up, and they have mentioned that at 15-year follow-up, the cross-link and a standard poly is more or less similar wear rate. So, is it possible that after a certain period of time, the cross-link poly, which is a stiffer poly than a standard. See, cross-linking make the poly stiffer, make the poly more prone to fatigue failure. So beyond certain time, now because other issues come up, the wear rate become more or less same. Now this is just one article. I couldn't find anything else corroborating the same data, but this is the only one which gives you 15-year comparative study of cross-link and a conventional poly.
So a lark doesn't make a summer. Sorry? A single lark doesn't make a summer, and I think this article is just to be looked at with curiosity, and we should wait for
I know. It's just one article, but this has given a data which is quite contrary to what people believe, and it's from a good place, Then vitamin E infusion, we all talk about. Basically, it came because it is to reduce the bad effect of cross-linking that cause a lot of antioxidant properties. So it increases the resistance to oxidation, it reduces the wear rate, it reduces the adhesion of bacteria on the poly, and it is supposed to reduce infection rate according to some articles. And many of them are available, and they have been used quite a lot. This is something interesting which I have found. It is from Japan. Both these articles are from the same place, and they use a biocompatible phospholipid layer on the poly. It's a nanometer thick, and they have shown that in first study, which was a in vitro study, and then they are back with in vivo study with clinical results showing much reduced wear and no clinical side effect with this new thing, where they have got a nanometer thick layer of a biocompatible phospholipid. Ever heard about it?
Well, no, I'm hearing this for the first time, but my logic makes me question that a nanometer thick,
nanometer is not 1 nanometer, I mean few nanometers.
Few nanometers, but a nanometer, so submicron, a nanometer thick layer of phospholipid will get worn out very quickly. I mean, at the end of the day, it is not expected to last forever or for even for a short period of time, isn't it? I mean, so
these are all basically attempts to protect and improve, and we have to wait and watch. One other interesting question I just want to put across, as we are using the larger heads, with most of you subscribing to a soft on hard articulation, what is it that triggers? Is it the wear properties or the coefficient of friction, or are you also concerned about the Trunian issues that is being talked about more? So in terms of using a metal and a ceramic.
Or the stability.
Yes. So, David, what is your thoughts on this? Use a ceramic or a oxonium cross poly. Worries is about the wear or the trunionosis also?
My preference is ceramic on polyethylene. That's what I use. I think, there's no free lunch in what we do. We got to worry about dislocation rates and in the short term, and we also got to worry about wear in the long term. So much like, for me, my philosophy, much like everything in life, the answer, I think, is somewhere in the middle. So I think 36 millimeters in the literature, 36 millimeters compared to 40 millimeter heads, there's really no decreased rate of dislocation. So if I can get a 36 and my thickness at least 5 millimeters on my polyethylene, that's what I'm going to go for. But if it's a younger patient in the 40s, even early 50s, I'm going to err on the side of getting a thicker polyethylene on that.
So what's the minimum poly the panelist think is required to have a safe hip replacement surgery in a younger people? What's the thinnest size you'll think using, say, highly cross-linked poly? Does a vitamin E infusion would matter to you that we can accept thinner than that? So what's the thinnest level which you can accept?
I would stay with 6.
6.
7.
7?
I'm not sure of the figure, but what I want to tell you is when we talk about XLPE, as the term generally used is for a one-time radiation to the polyethylene, which has changed. Now most of the polys are sequentially annealed and irradiated 2 or 3 times. That has changed the whole picture. That has made XLP outdated, and the newer type of XLP is the in thing. So XLP term that results that are coming in of the XLP, that was the older XLP. The newer polys, the results are still to be awaited, but it looks to me from the evidence that is produced that the newer polys, which are sequentially annealed and irradiated, are going to have all the good
That's
properties.
a good point, because many times when we just take cross-link poly as a monolithic thing, cross-link poly differs depending on the amount of radiation, the sequence, how it is used, whether after cross-linking, has it been annealed, has it been remelted. There are multiple ways it is made, and according to the many of the articles which we have, the cross-linking of different company also change. So wear properties comparing one study to all others is not very good. So cross-linking is supposed to improve, but is it good in hip? It is already, a lot of articles are there. Is it good in knee? What is your opinion? Would you like to use cross-link poly in knee?
Not me.
No, I don't use cross-link poly in knee.
No, I have been using it, and I think there is no reason for me as of this moment, as far as they are moderately cross-linked. Once again, bringing us to the stiffer point side of the equation.
No, it's just cross-linking and not cross-linking, because then we can keep on doing moderately, semi-moderately.
I have no reason to be worried about using cross-link poly in knees as of this moment. Although I do understand that the mechanism of failure in knees is a bit different.
I would say cross-link poly in the knee is a real possibility now with the newer generation of cross-linking methods and vitamin E infused poly. That is going to be more lasting than the XLP as we knew it. And in fact, because the poly has become so good, some of you may not know, the Oxford knee has promised a lifetime warranty on the knee in USA, only because they are so sure of the newer generation of polyethylene.
Among the panel, how much is the percentage of a wear-induced failures in the knee you see?
Wear-induced osteolysis, okay? Wear-induced osteolysis causing knee failure.
That brings the question whether you really need to justify and concern so much about the wear issue in the knees.
Interestingly, there are articles. Now, THR, cross-link poly, is good. Many articles like this, no two doubts about it. But in TKR, the wear pattern is different. It's because of rolling, sliding, and there's a pitting and delamination. And the cross-link poly, being harder and stiffer, cannot withstand this rolling and rotational wear. And they have found that it can wear faster. And there is a concern about poly mechanism locking in a modular TKR and a tibial post problem, and both of them can break earlier in a cross-link poly. And in fact, there are articles which have mentioned that TKR wear superficial may reduce a bit, but is it really required? And these are two articles by Skulko and Renner from Special Surgery, and they have reviewed, and this is exactly what Suri was mentioning about, that wear-induced osteolysis is a rare in modern TKR. And to reduce that, we don't have to use a cross-link poly, because it is not only not required, it is 4 times more expensive. Being brittle than the standard poly, it has got a higher risk of failing because of other pitting and delamination failure. So the question about using highly cross-linked poly in TKR is really very debatable. The only thing which company or people have tried to do is to infuse that with vitamin E, so that to some extent reduce the side effect of cross-linking. Now then it becomes still more expensive. Question is, is it worth it? Is it worth spending so much, 3-4 times the money to solve a problem which may not exist?
So Harish, value titration.
Last question,
Yeah,
just quick answers.
Quick answer.
Yeah.
Value titration is a different area of subject, but in purely biomaterial terms, a moderately cross-linked poly has been shown to be of having a place to be considered in knees as well. Highly cross-linked, of course, I agree with you, is out. That's why I initially mentioned that it's about the cross-linking, the grade of cross-linking that makes it a differentiator. Now, value titration is a completely different subject.
Dr. Ban, can you just summarize for the audience with regard to the tribology in the hip and the knee where we stay today, both in terms of the hard on hard, hard on soft? If you could summarize your thoughts with your vast experience.
To my understanding, highly cross-linked poly of the newer versions I'm talking about are good both for the hip and the knee, equally good for the knee as well as for the hip.
Thank you, Dr. Ban. Thank you, panelists. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, panel masters and panelists.